Hi, and welcome to this video, which is about the difference between guilt and shame. So this video is important because one of the barriers to change is how we think about our behavior, how we consider who we are when we're doing things. And one of the things that you'll hear from time to time is that we need to separate the person from the problem. And so the person is never the problem's the problem. And what we're really saying when we say that is we need to talk about guilt versus shame, or responsibility versus blame. And ultimately, we need to make sure that we are clear on how we're approaching when we're called out for something, when people tell us that we've hurt them, and or when we just simply disagree strongly about something that's important. And so we're just going to take a quick look at what the difference between these two things are in this video, and so just to kind of give you a very simple idea. And so the idea of shame is really one of identity. When we think of ourselves being shamed or having shame, we're thinking about who we are as a person. So when I do something wrong and I'm ashamed of it, I have this idea that I am wrong. Two ands. That's not helpful. See, it's really challenging to deal with a problem when we think we at our core are the problem. And so one of the things that we would encourage people to do is that instead of believing that we're wrong, like I'm a bad person, or I'm a bad father, or I am an angry person, or whatever, is to think in terms of I did something wrong. So that you can kind of see that there's a significant difference between these things. And this is the person versus problem way of understanding it. Is this is the person is the problem. I am the problem, or you are the problem. And that's why when you get into fights and arguments and that sort of thing, you might hear people say you. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make certain that that person is the source of the problem, because we are very uncomfortable with being the source of the problem. That's no longer true if we can take responsibility for something and feel bad about having done that something. So, for example, if I yell and say bad words to somebody that I care for, I can think of, well, I'm a terrible person, I'm an angry person, I have no self-control, I am. And all of that is simply getting kind of stuck thinking. And so that is one of the chief characteristics of shame, is it's getting stuck. We want to hide these parts of ourselves. So we'll lie about them, or we'll just deny them, or we'll not even think about them because they're so uncomfortable. If, however, I come at it from the perspective of guilt, then I know that I have behaved poorly. I have done something which was uncomfortable, unpleasant, and maybe even harmful for the other people. Right? So at that point, I can actually be free to be responsible. And that is one of the key features of guilt, is that when we violate or go against our values, we can actually say, you know what, that's something I did, not something who I am. I actually hold values that say that that was wrong too. Right? It's not that there's something fundamentally wrong going on inside. It's just I haven't learned how to live my values in that situation yet. And so then I can kind of invest some time and energy and self-development into changing this, because it's my free choice, right? Because I actually have power and choice over my behavior. I actually get to decide how I am and who I am when I'm with people. And so there is no need to hide then if I'm actually responsible for this. Now imagine how freeing that is. If you're stuck over here with the I am wrong and I'm stuck in all of that and I'm trying to hide that part of me that I'm ashamed of, then I'm definitely going to kind of have this internal yuck feeling, right? If, however, I'm able to say, you know what, I actually did that thing, and I can be responsible for that thing and make amends, and I can choose not to do that the next time, right? I can actually begin to change the way I think and the way I feel so that I can behave differently the next time, and look at Managing Emotions video to figure out how to do that. But it's really important that I can actually feel bad about what I've done, and it's feeling bad about my behavior, not about me, right? I wish I had been more resourced in that moment and been able to behave better. This is feeling bad in a way that, well, I just feel bad existentially because this is about my identity, right? I'm the kind of person that can do that. And that's a serious problem for overcoming this way of doing. Ultimately, shame is kind of failure in the eyes of the other, right? So it's kind of a judgment. And it's a kind of a judgment about your identity, right? So when we feel shamed, we feel kind of like we've failed in some really important way. Right? Deep inside we know, oh geez, you know what, that person thinks less of me now. And there's nothing I can do about that, right? Because the problem is about who I am. And you know, changing who I am is incredibly hard when I'm just not worth it, or not able, or not good enough, or whatever it might be. On the other hand, here, when we're feeling guilt, we can feel bad because we have violated our own values, right? So there's some sort of standard that we have fallen below. Whether it's our standard or somebody else's standard, like at work, if there's a standard of behavior, and we've somehow fallen down on that, then we can go, okay, so the standard is external to me, my behaviors are external to me, and so I can actually now just retool a bit, right? I know I'm thinking, okay, what value did I violate in order to be able to act this way that I now feel guilty about, or that somebody is calling me out on. And if you're returning to the office right now for, or to your workplace, and video is done during the time of COVID-19, you're going to notice that there's a lot of new rules and new standards that are being implemented. My office has little arrows everywhere, and they're in a nice irritating red. And there's big signs saying, if you touch it, clean it, and I'm like, right? There's so many things, so many standards to live up to now, that if I'm responding from a place of shame, that is going to be incredibly stressful. Because every time I mess up, I'm like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. If I'm over here, it's just like, oh geez, I just haven't learned how to live by this standard yet. It's new to me. I don't know how to do it. I'm learning, and so I've just got to kind of work my way through it. And so this really ultimately is about change. Right? Guilt is a powerful motivator for change, and we want to capture that. In the process of change is hard, and being inspired or having an insight that allows me to kind of be more motivated to learn the new skills, guilt is one actually very powerful motivator. And we can use it very, very effectively in our own lives to live up to our own values, to kind of make the changes we need to make. And ultimately, the idea of shame is that change is not possible, right? That I'm a bad person, right? You remember those, probably some kids from high school or elementary school that were labeled as the bad kids, or the problem kids, or the troubled kids, or whatever. At-risk youth, I think, is a more appropriate term nowadays. And so now they're kind of being told, yeah, you don't have what it takes as much, right? And maybe you're just bad at the core, and that's all we can expect from you is disruption and rebellion and all of that kind of stuff. And basically they're taught from a young age, and this is what shame does, is it teaches you can't change. You are who you are. A tiger can't change its stripes and all that kind of stuff, right? And so this whole idea of not being able to change is a serious problem. Which is why I encourage you to kind of lean over here. Just ignore all of this. Don't participate in this story of shame, because even though we're taught it from a young age, it's not helpful. It doesn't do you any good. And instead start looking at being in the realm of guilt, where you can acknowledge your behavior fell short of a standard, maybe even violated your values, so you can feel bad about that, and engage in your free choice to be responsible and to engage in change. So we're going to pause the video again or at least put the screen up for a little while. Take a look at, think about the aspects of your life and which side of this do you walk on most, and how could you move more of your life over here, both for yourself and how you deal with others. Thanks for watching this video on guilt and shame, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.